We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
I may not be a millionaire. I may not have a brand new Frigidaire. My clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new. But there is joy in my house.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Join My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. A reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant. Who says it?
I'm joined here by my co-host, Lolita Robinson, author of Shaped by the Master's Hands and recording artist.
How are you, sweetheart?
Welcome to another day of Join My House, and
Yes.
happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, and happy Mother's Day to your clan.
Thank you. I want to wish everybody out
Everybody.
there a happy Mother's Day. On this special day, we are having today a Mother's Day special.
Yeah, it's going to be
And,
really powerful.
And before I continue, I did have a Mother's Day present for you.
Oh, no, you didn't. I love the one I have for next week. Oh, you didn't. Oh,
Happy Mother's Day.
My gosh, our new cup. Oh, look at this. We got new cups, you guys. Oh, well, thank you. I want to cry. Oh, that's beautiful.
Happy Mother's Day.
You.
Happy
Okay, I
Mother's
forgive
Day.
you for what you pulled for next week. Wait till you tell the audience. That's oh, this is
We
beautiful.
want to welcome everybody out there, all our listeners and viewers, for joining us on this special day, Mother's Day. We do have a Mother's Day special for you today, but I did want to touch base on a couple of things.
Yeah.
We have a great event coming up, Women of War at Busby in Hollywood,
Yeah.
right off Wilshire, where Lolita will be performing live. Join My House is sponsoring the event, so I want all of you out there to go to womenofwar.com and find us and meet up with us on Wednesday about 5 o'clock. We're doing a red carpet event, some interviews. Some amazing people are going to be hosting the show.
Other singers and stuff
And
giving their
other
time.
performers are going to be out there performing for the Women of War.
I had
which is a
no
great
idea
ministry.
what that meant until I went online, because I really believe there's a war on women in terms of people, so many women being abused and beaten and murdered, but I didn't know that there was such an epidemic of women being raped in the service,
Yes.
in the military. So
this is a great
I'm
ministry.
honored to be a part of this. I mean, sexual abuse is my passion, and where people have been abused, and God has been healing my life. Who knew that it would, take this course?
Well,
so
thanks to Deborah Hayter,
Yeah.
PR manager out there, who invited us to the event that
yeah,
we can be a part
Deborah.
of.
Well, Deborah God used her for this, for
Yes,
you to be
same
the
here.
the host here.
Yeah.
So
And
Hey,
you also,
Van.
and you also had, I want to say hi to Van,
Yeah,
Van
good
Eric,
to see
our
you.
producer, our
Uh-huh.
engineer producer here. You had an amazing event at Park Christian Church in Long Beach.
yeah,
for the
God really
CR
showed
night.
up. He really did. I mean, I was just really blessed.
And
I'm
thanks
really
to Kathy
blessed.
Taylor out there. Thank you, Kathy, for the invite as well.
Yeah.
I want
So
you
you've
guys,
been busy.
I've been trying to stay busy.
Oh my gosh, you remind me of an anchorman. So what's happening, Channel 7 News?
I wish. I want to thank you, listeners and viewers out there, for joining in with us. I want you to find us on Facebook /Join My House. You can find all of our archive shows, episodes here on latalklive.com. If you're just listening to us through iTunes or through your mobile device, you can actually stream us live through ustream.tv /Join My House. And I want you to engage with us. Be a part of the joy that we have in our house.
Yeah.
Especially on a day like this, Mother's Day, where it's a lot of celebrating. We also want to bring a little bit of I would say a little bit of peace and a little bit of knowledge to people who are grieving out there for the loss of their mothers, especially as we get a little older, as the circle of life.
Yeah, things change.
Things change.
They do change. They really do.
So we have a great guest today.
And don't forget, last week we had Lynn.
Oh, last week, Lynn Wells.
Lynn
Oh
Wells,
my
that
gosh.
guy. Man, every now and then God will just send us some people that are just hilarious, and it's great.
Yes.
You know, people had Brett Lewis, right?
Brett Lewis from KFWB.
And Pastor Lynn was just hilarious. Just I had such a spirit of release of joy and laughing.
If you missed our last week's show, it's up on our Facebook. Pastor Lynn, ministry men's leader from Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, had a great story.
He did. And then healed of cancer building. Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so we've had a really diverse group of people and learned a lot.
Definitely. And like I always say, you know, the people that come out here and our guests are ministering to me directly. So it's just a blessing to be in their presence and to hear their stories. It brings encouragement and hope to me.
Yeah, I hope it, like you said, that when people are driving home from church in between services, that they're getting ministered to and having something to hold on to for the week.
Yes, because I know this helps me. So if it's helping you out there, we want to hear about it. Find us on joinmyhouse.com. Find us on Facebook /joinmyhouse. Become a fan and receive up-to-date lineups of guests and information. And a lot of times, you know, Lolita's a speaker and singer. So she also performs. You'll find out where she's at as well. Or if you'd like to book her for any of your events, just let us know. Engage with us.
That cup is beautiful. Are we going to be putting them out now or what?
I bought a few just for us, for the guests, for us to have. But eventually I would like to eventually be able to give them away or at least do a donation where it supports the ministry.
Contest people, you know, you call or whatever. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Once again, happy Mother's Day,
Thank
Lolita.
you. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to the
day.
day.
To my mother, to the mother of my children who have been great to my children, to all the mothers out there, thank you so much for just being an inspiration to us and being a lot of times the backbone of our child rearing, of our upbringing. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we're going to come back with Jocelyn Jackson. Jocelyn Jackson. She's going to be our in-studio guest, a story that you're not going to want to miss. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joy in My House. Stay tuned.
Come back.
How can I forget you? Where did the sweetness go, Lord? Have I fallen from your hand? Am I so far from you, Lord? Is my life in your plan? Where can I run when I feel all alone? Do my words truly reach you high on your throne? Where did your presence go, Lord? Have you pushed me far from your mind? Where did our laughter go? Will you smile on me one more time? How can I hope when the lights are growing dim?
Do you suffer from degenerative diseases such as high blood pressure, diabetes, fibroid tumor, high cholesterol, genital herpes, or a plethora of other diseases that rob you of a quality life? If so, then visit the website of herbalist Tahuti Ma'atra at dhealthstore.com and open the door to natural healing at an affordable price. dhealthstore.com has over 1,800 products created by herbalist Tahuti Ma'atra, specifically designed to help you heal the natural and safe way. At dhealthstore.com, you'll find everything from herbal formulas and cleanses, such as Tahuti's famous full body detox, as well as herbal teas, extracts, natural body butters, lotions, creams, children's products, hair care products, and of course, sexual enhancement products for both men and women. So visit the website of Tahuti Ma'atra, dhealthstore.com, or call toll free at 1-888-823-9416. dhealthstore.com.
My clothes ain't all fancy and my car ain't brand new, but there is joy in my house.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio,
with a touch of recovery.
a reality show where nothing is left unsaid,
And no one is insignificant who says it.
exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes under R&B or watch us live on Ustream TV. We are reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio on LATalkLive.com. We're more than just talk. We're heaven's party here on earth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Join My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. I'm joined here by recording artist Lolita Robinson and author of Shaped by the Master's Hand.
Hi, welcome back. Glad to be here.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there for all the sacrifices and all the encouraging you do for us. We have our great in-studio guest, Jocelyn Jackson.
Hey.
Welcome to the show.
Yay, thank you.
Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm excited that you came on. I always like to tell the story of how we met. Myself and Lolita met you at Oasis Church out in LA. There was a Celebrate Recovery event where John Brennan, the regional director of Celebrate Recovery, his wife was giving his testimony. So we went out to support and got an opportunity to meet you. And John said, you got to talk to this young lady and maybe have her on your show.
Yeah, I just did my testimony at their church the week before, too. So
Wow.
So we had missed that. Okay.
But then we didn't speak for a couple of months. I know that I gave you my card and you know, you had some things that you had to take care of, and you said that usually you don't wait so long. If you say you're going to call back, you call back right away.
Yeah.
But it was weighing on you.
What happened?
Yeah, I just knew I needed to call him. It never left me that I said I was going to call you, and I'm not the type of person, if I say I'm going to call, then I don't. And so, you know, there are just a few things going on in my life, and one day I was like, I have to call him right now. And called you, and then, you know.
And how interesting, because at that time I had not booked my Mother's Day guest for today.
Right.
And usually I have so many issues that I'm control freak is one of them. So I always want to control the show and make sure that my guests are booked and that I'm write the scripts out in the shows and I'm prepared. And on this one I wasn't really prepared. But what ended up happening is I prayed about it and God gave me a lot of peace about it. And I met you on Thursday.
Yeah. When she called, you right? You called out of the blue?
Yeah, she called the week before. We met on Thursday.
Yeah.
Not knowing that I didn't have a guest and not knowing that you had a great Mother's Day testimony that you're going to share today, and then you ended up coming on the show right away.
Yeah.
How faithful of you. Thank you.
See,
Yeah.
it's God's timing, right?
It was. It was the look on his face when I started to talk about my mom. I could tell something was going on. He's like, this is to be for a reason.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. Well, I'm ready.
What? Let's start off. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Bay Area. So the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm an only child, actually an only child of an only child.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
so pretty small family. My mom had a brother, but my dad was an only child also. So
Really? Your mother was the only child? Oh, your mother had a brother.
yeah, my mom had
Okay.
a brother, and my dad was an only child though, and just raised by his mother. So I've always been in a very small family unit. That's what I'm used to.
Well, I like what you said because I got an opportunity to read your testimony and sit down and have coffee with you in downtown on Thursday, and you mentioned latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Latchkey kid.
Latchkey kid.
You're like, what is that? Latchkey kids are kids who kind of stay at home by themselves, and the latchkey is their babysitter when you're old enough to stay at home by yourself, and your parents are working or out, and you just, you know, I was at home a lot by myself, and really started taking care of myself.
Did you feel a lot of isolation during that time period of your childhood? Did you feel lonely or?
To an extent, you know, only children learn to take care of themselves, or they learn to entertain themselves too. So I always wanted brothers and sisters, definitely. But as an only child, you just kind of learn to entertain yourself. And And when you're an adult, I think it helps because I can go places by myself and it's not a big deal. I have a lot of friends who's like, oh, I won't go to a restaurant by myself, or I won't go to movies by myself.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's like,
You've done it all your life.
Yeah.
God prepared you probably for seasons of solitude, which we'll get into later on when you talk about your testimony, because grieving is that.
You mentioned that your parents were sometimes a little bit distant. Was that because they were working? What was the reason for that?
There was one thing we were united on. I will say that I was a cheerleader for Pop Warner, and my dad was a football coach.
Oh, okay.
And then my mom was, just in the stands supporting. So that was an activity we all did together. But aside from that, my parents worked and had other activities going on. So a lot of times we spent a lot of time apart too. Like I remember. Every time I see families eating together and that's like their family meal and they do that, we just never did that consistently. We didn't do that all the time. So in my mind, that's still kind of something that happens on TV.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of families don't do that. I remember having family time at my household, and it wasn't very pleasant.
No.
Because it was a time when you got asked about your day at school and your homework, and it was like being on the hot seat. And unfortunately, I didn't raise my boys to sit around the table, because it was a very unpleasant situation. So, it's different. Hopefully they will have that.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will have a sit down. You missed that?
Yeah.
I didn't.
But it just depends on your experience. My mom had a lot of experiences in her childhood that she didn't want to have repeat with me. So I think she went on the opposite spectrum.
That's what I think I
feel
did.
like in the next generation the'll be some
You'll
sort
do
of
it
balance.
better. You guys will balance
We'll
it
try,
out.
yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. Were you depressed during that time, or how did you keep yourself entertained?
I was a nerd, so I studied a lot.
Good for you.
My parents and their friends used to tease me, like, no matter where we went, my parents and their friends would go skiing every year, once a year, and I would not go anywhere without my backpack. So
your backpack and your books.
So a skier. You're a skier?
Yeah.
Go girl.
I haven't skied in a long time though, so I don't know if I should claim it still. But but I did for a long time.
Okay, and you took your backpack or your books and stuff, and you're studying stuff.
Then I go ski, come back and study some more. So I let my books, I guess, entertain me.
That's what, and that's probably why your life is the way it is. And I want to say hi to Mel too. Her roommate's here with her today. How special,
Yeah, a lot of support. I did want to touch base because you mentioned at a young age. I mean, 12 years old. Your grandfather passed, and you had.
Yeah.
They actually thought about who would go to live with your grandmother, and you weren't even the oldest, but yet they chose you to go out of the grandchildren.
Yeah, there are 4 grandchildren.
From who?
What's that?
Oh, I thought your mother had a.
It was my mom's dad. He died when I was in junior high.
Okay.
And there were 4 grandchildren, and my grandmother started to have a series of strokes, one after the other, and so we knew that somebody needed to stay with her, and we wanted it to be a family member, and so the adults decided that it should be me.
At 12
years old?
At
12 years old?
I probably was just about to turn 13, yeah.
Oh, how was that?
It was different, but I felt like it was necessary. So even at that age, I saw that I could, help out in a way that is a little
so you were a little
out of
adult.
the norm. Yeah, when I look back now, I think I made a lot of adult decisions at an early age, or had a lot of adult responsibilities at an early age.
Were you like her caretaker? Was she sick?
And she wasn't sick, but just in case something happened to her, we wanted someone there. So we'd be available to help her immediately if need be.
Okay. But that also made you very independent at 13
Absolutely.
years old.
Absolutely. It came a point in time where I think as a teenager, it made it a little bit harder, because I did eventually move back into my home with my mom. And
how old were you when you moved back?
14, 15.
Okay.
It was back and forth. So once I moved in for about 8 months, and they moved me out, and then she started to get a little ill again, and I moved back in for another year when I was in high school, and I was about 15 or so when I went back home.
What did you have a lot of time to play too? Was it balanced? And looking back, do you feel like that in hindsight it was a good thing to do, but can you see some of the things that it kind of cost you maybe as a child? Or
no, I don't. I really don't look at it that way, and I really mean it when I say I was a nerd. Like, I enjoyed studying, so I was okay
so
with that.
It was fine. So nobody to bug you, and grandma was resting, and you could do your thing. Okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
I would hang out with my friends at school, and then come home. And
well, God prepared you. He had something in mind, I'm sure, to be around an elderly person who's going through a lot of changes, a lot of young people wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, but I guess when you love your family, it's different cultures I think would look at it differently. I think in some cultures that's true. That's just is what you do.
Right.
You know?
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah. So when you moved back home with your mother, she would take you to church, at least initially.
Yeah, well, it was during the time that I was living with my grandmother.
Okay.
I started to go to a church myself, which was like 2 blocks away. My mom took me to church when I was a little girl, and then stopped going because my dad never went to church, and so she eventually stopped going. But around that time when I was moving in with my grandmother, I was like, I want to go back to church.
Did your grandmother go to church?
No, it took a lot to get her out of the house, and she did before, but at that time she didn't.
So on your own, that's awesome. You found your own church.
Yeah. I did. I found the neighborhood church. I don't remember how. I think a lot of kids in the neighborhood maybe went there. And I knew who the pastor was, and so I started going and just felt like that's where where I needed to be.
How interesting at that age you found yourself to take the initiative to go to church.
Yeah, I look back at it now. I'm like, what? I say wow too, but at the time it just made sense.
Well, so God was always in your heart then, to a certain degree.
Yeah. I know some people like to say that, if you say you don't remember when you were saved, then you're not saved. I was like, if you learn at a very young age who Jesus is, and you know him and you have him in his heart, in your heart, it's not, I can't actually point to the actual, moment when I said, oh, Jesus, I want you to be the leader of my life, because I was a young kid, and I just know that at that age, I felt the need to be in his house.
Well, awesome.
And how was your experience at church? Because I think it was kind of significant that you mentioned this in your testimony.
It's very significant. So at this time, I'm a teenager, early teens, and I made the mistake. I didn't understand that the leaders of the church weren't perfect. In my mind at that age, I thought...
Yeah, you do. I think people still do sometimes. They, put them,
adults do that too.
Yeah, make them like God.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I thought if God ordained somebody to be a leader in the church, then they are perfect. And then when I learned that they weren't, then I had some problems. And so there were a few inconsistencies that I saw in some of the people who were leaders over me and the other teenagers. And I got very discouraged. And after a year or so, I just stopped going. And
how old were you? About 16 or 17, or
I'm still at the other end 15? Of 15.
Okay.
And I always say it was the single most worst decision I've made in my life, and I've made some doozies.
Okay. Thank you. That's the kind of people we want. Real people on this show.
Oh yeah, I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But that one, I always say, was the worst decision that I've ever made, in spite of some of the things I've done, because I just lost all sense of spiritual accountability. I was accountable to no one but myself. And
that's great that you're mentioning that, especially for the youth out there that seem to find themselves on iPhones and the social media. And they get detached from what God really has for them, especially at that tender age of growth and of maturity.
And this culture today, it's not the thing about the Lord now as it was coming up. I'm older than you are, but it's even worse now, because Christ is not even on the map in a lot of youth centers. So you found that to be a detriment for you.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was at the time, though. At the time, I felt like I was doing the right thing. At the time, I thought, I'll just worship God in my house. That'll be my church. I love God. Doesn't matter where I love him. And that was just a huge mistake.
What happened? I mean, when you say mistake, did you get into depression or just a bitterness, or what happened?
Yeah, well, the next year of my life, surprisingly, that first year was probably the most devastating, and then just decisions and choices I made after that made it even worse. But I had a boyfriend, and I was sexually abused by my boyfriend.
Oh boy.
And this is all within the same year. And I had a best friend who'd we known each other since nursery school, since I was 3 years old, and she got mad at me one day and stopped speaking to me, like cold, out of the blue, left the school that we both attended, and this is somebody who I'd spent all of my time with.
Yeah, because you had some connection with her.
Yeah, and
did you meet him in the church, your boyfriend?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I've been on the streets, but that sounds weird.
Oh, okay. No, well, yeah, just in the market or whatever.
Yeah, out in Richmond, California. And a few months later, I was sexually abused again by a friend of the family, and I just didn't know what to do, and I felt like, in particular in that situation, that it would be damaging to my parents to let them know. So I just chose to say nothing. So I just didn't talk about it at all.
And nobody noticed the change. Well, you were probably quiet anyway.
Yeah.
So even being even more quiet, nobody would know anything.
Yeah. I think I went through an angry stage that my mother unfortunately had to bear the brunt of when she didn't know what it was about. I'm sure she figured, because this is the other thing that happened in that year. My parents split up.
I was going to ask you, were they still together?
They had split while I was at my grandmother's. Something had happened and they split up. So before I moved back home, they both sat me down separately and said, we're getting a divorce.
Boy, you had a lot to hit you.
Yeah. And in 1 year,
a lot of teenagers have a lot of stuff coming. That's good. I'm glad you're mentioning this, because
my daughter's 15.
15.
She's 15 and she has her struggles. But there's a great program that's out of Park Crest Christian Church that we were just Lolita's CR event called The Landing, and it's like a 12-step Christian program for children, for teens, and she went and she loved it.
Oh, she did.
So I'm happy.
I'm glad you're talking about that. I know we've got so much to get towards Mother's Day, but what you're saying is so pivotal for so many young people out there today. All these things that you just mentioned, that's a lot.
It is a lot. At the end of that year, I had an anxiety attack because I'd been holding in everything, and I just my body knew something was going wrong, and that's the way it manifested, was to have an anxiety attack.
Can you explain what it was like? I've had them before too, but maybe some people out there may be having them not knowing. How did yours manifest?
Mine felt a lot like the same way I would have cramps. Like there would just be pain in my stomach, and I would just be boiled over, and the pain was so intense that I couldn't speak, and I didn't want to breathe because just breathing hurt. And so my mom had to come get me. We went to the doctor. I had no idea. I assumed it was just cramps, but the doctor's like, no, this is an anxiety attack.
Wow. Mine were I couldn't breathe. My heart would beat fast. I had to sit down. And sometimes I feel like I wanted to take my clothes off. I felt like I was suffocating. So I didn't. So you had physical. So you had physical sensations. See, that's good for people to know that sometimes you don't know what's going on. The doctor had wisdom enough to know that it was anxiety. Yeah. Did they medicate you or anything?
No, she didn't give me any medication.
Counseling or anything at the time?
No, she didn't prescribe. I think about that too. I was like, I don't know why she didn't prescribe counseling or anything. Weirdest thing is she said that I needed to eat more, which at that age I ate. I know how to throw down. I was like, I don't know how I can eat
you can't tell. Was it a eating disorder or anything that you got into? Or
no, not at all. Okay. No, I would eat, and so, but she said, I guess she said I needed more calories or something, and that's what I remember. I don't. If she said something else, I honestly don't remember that part. I think that part stood out because I was like, "That's weird."
That is really weird.
Well, let's continue on, because even through all this challenges and these struggles that you were faced with, you were like you said, you were
away
very
from
book
church.
smart.
Yeah.
You applied yourself, and you ended up going to graduate school. So let's talk about that. How was college for you?
College was quite different
Where
from
did you
high
go?
school. I went to UC Davis.
Oh, okay.
And I was
very liberal. So did you get a lot of different viewpoints than from Christianity when you were there? Or?
Yeah, definitely. There's the freedom for people to express themselves, and in college is really the first opportunity that people get to do that, and so they
let it rip.
So they go with it. I was a poli-sci major, poli-sci in Spanish.
Look at you, girl.
And so
she's so beautiful and so humble, and she's sitting here and she's got all this stuff going on. That's awesome.
But the thing that wasn't awesome with expressing yourself was because I began to be known politically around campus because I was involved in student government. So any class I went to, I was the one person in class who didn't want to talk. Like everybody else wanted to share their opinion, but because the professors would know me, they're like, "Jocelyn, what do you think?" And I'm like, I just want to disappear.
I know.
I just want to take notes and go home and study them.
But so you would get up and share your views. What were your views then? Do you really know back then? You know,
you're still figuring it out. You know, we figure it out as we go along, and a lot we weren't at that time very politically like left and right or Democrat Republican.
Right.
I mean, there was that element,
but not
on
to the
campus.
degree it is today.
Yeah, but we fought a lot about just student issues and things going on campus. So it was a little bit more towards what should we do for picnic day and what, just different,
wow. Total different.
Yeah.
Total
Completely.
different stuff, you know.
I did want to touch on your relationships at that time. I always say, God put us on earth for relationships and for us to love one another and fellowship with one another. How was your social life at that time?
Oh, not too.
And the Lord still wasn't there yet.
No, I was still doing my own thing. And this is what,
Did you ever drink or drugs or any of that stuff?
No.
No, you were educated enough to know all that reading.
I was, let me tell you, I started school a little bit earlier. So I was 20 when I was a senior.
Oh, wow.
And I was a resident advisor that year.
Senior of college, though, right?
In college.
Okay, because people are thinking, wait a minute, no. You want to clarify that?
Yes. Senior in college.
Okay.
And I remember when I was an RA, I will never forget this. There's two teenagers who got drunk and found their way on campus to our dorms. And there's one guy, and the girl just left him. Finally, she just left him because I think she didn't want to get in trouble. And he was laid up against a pole, and he was he couldn't move. He was just throwing up over himself. He couldn't move his body. And I was like, that's disgusting. And I never want to be in like that. And so I don't know. I really do feel like God has protected me in that area because I grew up around kids who did drugs, who smoked weed, and did all of that, and I was never peer pressured. And I know peer pressure is a big thing. For some reason, it just surpassed me. I've never had to really deal with that and being forced to do something, and I just was never interested in drugs.
I didn't want to do the drugs. I probably would have gotten into drinking, but because of being sexually abused, drugs to me really represented not being in control. And so I really didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether or not that, but like you said, everybody doesn't go down that route. You made that decision at an early age that forget it.
Yeah.
So good for you.
And again, like I am a real person, so it's not. I've had drinks before,
No,
but
I didn't
really
feel that from you at all.
Yeah.
No, I didn't feel that at all. And I think it's refreshing. Everybody does not have to, because they're abused or whatever, go down that road. Everybody makes different choices.
And mine just manifested in different ways. So in college, it's a stark contrast from high school. I had boyfriends in high school and lots of interest, but what I found in college was that nobody was really interested in a relationship. And so I had a lot of guys interested in me or coming towards me for purely sexual reasons, and a lot of them because they wouldn't be honest enough to say that that's what they're doing. There's just a level of dishonesty between when I'm talking to somebody, it's like you're saying something to me, but for some reason I don't really believe you or trust you. And some of that probably had to do with the sexual abuse too, of just a distance. I remember there was one guy who told me that he and his friends called me something like the Pentagon or something like that, because you can't be penetrated. There's just like nobody, you can't get near you.
Well, then part of you as as only child too, you had learned how to kind of
be by
in your own world.
Yeah, you learn how to be by yourself.
But then also being abused that way, you put up those walls.
Yeah, and so
rightfully so at that point.
Yeah.
They served to protect you probably more from other stuff. So did
That's
you date at all
true.
in college or?
Nothing. I had one guy that I dated that I still look back fondly, and we're still friends to this day. Aside from him, it just wasn't very successful at all. And I really created this mentality that this dating thing, and it's just not going to work for me. Like relationships don't work for me because the guys only want one thing, and nobody's interested in being in a relationship with me, and that's what I'm looking for. And nobody.
I'm sure a lot of people feel that way today too.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people.
Well, I'm gonna fast forward and I'm gonna skip over some of those things, and we'll go back to that. Later on, you got invited to go to a church, and it was very significant how you put this, because you said you got invited to go to a church without being forced or made feel guilty about.
Yeah. So my mom and her friends were praying fervently for me for this entire time, for me to find my way back to church, and they would give me books and try to say encouraging things, and I'd be like, thanks.
So your mother, after her divorce, got back with the Lord.
My mother, yeah, she started going back to church, ended up becoming a deacon in her church, and was very committed.
Okay.
And this is the time when she was really praying for me. And because I, at some point I had a boyfriend I moved in with, so I lived with him for 2 years, and then so they're all like, what is going on? And I got to a point where I didn't want anybody telling me what to do with my spiritual life. And if you were trying to force me, then I really didn't want to hear it. And then that's the method that some people use with me, is just, we're going to church. I'm like, no, I'm not. Actually, I'm not.
Right.
And or just really trying to strong arm me, and that doesn't work for me. And so I had a coworker who just asked, like, hey, you want to come to church with me? And it was the first time somebody just made an invitation. And it just made sense for me to say yes. Like, there was no, because I wasn't fighting anything.
Right. And she or he wasn't trying to have an agenda. Just, do you want to come?
Right.
And he said, I'll come pick you up. We'll make this easy. And he did that. He continued to pick me up every Sunday until one day I was like, I don't need you to pick me up. I can go myself.
Oh, that's awesome. So you stayed where he took you.
That's Oasis.
Oasis.
And
Oh, wow.
Oasis
That's so
Church.
cool.
Yep.
And then
so
you actually
cool.
started serving
Yeah.
in the office.
Yeah, I started serving in the office and at church. I was one of the original. There are 4 people of the dance ministry. Pastor Philip, who you know.
Yeah, Pastor Phil.
Yeah.
We go back from the early vineyard days, and I remember when he was saying that he was called to be a pastor. Wow, and to see what God has done.
And now he
is
is
miraculous.
Yeah, he's an amazing man.
Yeah, well, you know him now. I mean, from you know him. I just knew him back then. So you started out with your original group?
Yeah, Pastor Philip actually is the one who got me started serving, really, because he came up to me one day, and I was dancing at the time, and he's like, so I hear you're a dancer, and we're gonna start a dance ministry. You're gonna be on it. You should be on it. And so I was like, I'm not gonna say no to the pastor. So. And
it was a small church. So are you the original? How long had the Oasis been up then? Probably for about 10 years, right? When you came?
Well, we just celebrated 29 years.
Oh gosh.
So we were at probably year 17 at that time.
Wow. Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like what you wrote when you started serving. You got introduced to a standard of ministry.
Yeah.
Which I think was significant in your story, because you were serving in the office, and now they asked you to be a part of the ministry of dance.
So I had, I had a live-in boyfriend for a couple of years, and then just a couple of relationships that were obviously not God's best. And so around that time, I started to join the choir. And in the choir, we have what we call Standards of Ministry, which is just a document that basically lays out biblical guidelines of how you should conduct yourself.
That's right.
Because it's,
that was important for you as a child, right? When you saw that people weren't going according to that. Was that a safety for you to see that at Oasis that the leaders had to?
Yeah, I was happy. I remember signing it thinking, oh, if this was a few months ago, I'd have been in trouble, because there's a couple things on here that I'm still doing. So it was the first time to me that was a welcome back to accountability. It was the first accountability that I had again, of somebody saying, hey, here's an actual standard for you to live your life by. Since you are a follower of Christ, and other people are looking to you, that your life should demonstrate that.
And you knew what that was like, because you said that at 15. You didn't see that in the leaders around you. So that's awesome how God did that.
And through this process, I'm gonna just go a little quickly. 2009, you had a staff retreat, and this was the single most spiritual, profound moment. I'm quoting you.
You are quoting me. It really was. We had a guest speaker who was prophesying over every staff member, and I just remember I was sitting there thinking, I have no idea what God would say to me. Like, not a clue. And so Philip and Holly were sitting right in front of me.
That's Pastor Phil's wife, Holly.
Yeah. And
love to you guys and the work that God has done, really.
Yeah, they're right in front of me, and I just prayed, God, whatever you would have to say to me, just don't make it embarrassing, because my pastors are right in front of me.
Yeah, really.
And everyone else is here.
I get that, telling your business or something.
Yeah, but then I felt convicted when I said that. I felt like that was trifling. Like, I understand it. I get it. I want to impress my bosses. I don't want to, look a certain way. But then at the same time, if I have an opportunity for God to speak into my life, then I want to hear what He wants to say. So I had another prayer, and it went more along the lines of, whatever it is you want me to hear, that's exactly what I want you to say to me. Prayer. And so after praying that, our guest speaker starts walking around and just kind of got a little distracted, like wasn't talking for a while, like he was going from person to person, and he just kind of just started having some casual conversations. And he told me later that he had felt God impress upon his heart to talk about his daughter and her sexual abuse, and he didn't know why.
Wow.
But he did. And so he proceeded to talk about his daughter, who had been sexually abused twice when she was a teenager, and how she never talked about it, and how it caused so many problems in her life. Yeah. So when I say it's the most...
did he say that in front of everybody, or did he take you aside?
No, he said it in front of everybody, and then he walked directly to me and started talking to me.
About that story?
He started talking about other things, and then he came back to talk about it.
Is that awesome? Is that incredible?
And so I was just astounded that, when I offer my life to God and say, here it is, do as you will, that He'll point to the things that I've, told myself for years I'm over and it's fine. And God's like, nope, there's some stuff that needs to be addressed here.
That is amazing.
And sent that man of God to do that. That's incredible.
And after that, you got introduced to Celebrate Recovery, which you completed the step study.
Yeah.
And I like your quote, what you said here. About Celebrate Recovery, they would no longer have to come to church and pretend to be something that they're not. I call that the happy clappy. They were where there is pressure to suffer in silence because of unspoken expectations that you better have in your life together if I'm not going to accept you.
Yeah.
I think that was amazing that you wrote that. I think I said it a little wrong, but
well, maybe she could say it in her way.
Well, this is hers. I'm quoting her.
Yeah. No, the idea that I think people get in church sometimes, like you go to church to be perfect, and we don't go to church to be perfect. We go to church to have an encounter with God and to ultimately become more like Christ. So if we're doing that, then we're not perfect. So we should be able to get over ourselves and that idea. But I think sometimes the longer someone's in church, there becomes this unspoken idea and expectation that I need to have my life together because I'm a Christian.
Totally
so
opposite.
the way that I show that I'm a Christian is that I show that I do everything perfectly. But that's not what God has said, and so.
And in your life, He pinpointed the problem. He wants to. It's for the. He said, "I came for the sick." Mm-hmm. He came to heal those places, and you're right.
Yeah, and so the longer that we all pretend that everything's perfect and everything's okay,
and not let Him have access to us.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And He revealed more to you, and through a traumatic experience. This is Mother's Day, and I know this is a little difficult, but your mother passed all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What happened?
She had an aneurysm. This was about a year into me being at Oasis and serving and getting connected. And I had actually just seen her. I went to the Bay Area. Last minute, I went to the Bay Area to spend time with her and her friend. And she had just told me, and she was so excited because she's always had some sort of health problem, whether it's high blood pressure, or her thyroid, or things of that nature. She had glaucoma. So this was the first time she had come out of the doctor's office and they gave her a clean bill of health.
Wow.
So
Are you kidding?
She was over the moon and excited. Yeah, and so she had that doctor's appointment on a Wednesday. I saw her that week. I left and came back to LA. I was back here on Sunday, and that Monday I get a call from Parks and Recreation in the Bay Area that she was found. She had been walking, and she had literally fell over and died.
In the park?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, Jocelyn.
So there were other joggers who found her. Yeah.
Boy, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But at least God gave her a sense of joy and peace, that she felt like she was okay for a while there. She wasn't worried about her health, and I guess He took her quickly.
Yeah.
Boy, that doesn't make sense, does it?
No. Oh, no.
It must have just knocked you.
Yeah. I had no no sense of understanding of it for a long time, and even going home and gathering up her things, and it was just incredibly painful. And especially going to the park, and they gave me her things. There was something about just being there that was just brought me back to at least the story of what they've been telling me, what they told me it would happen. And just to picture that is just, it's painful to imagine my mother going through that. And even though it's been over 10 years now, it's just still incredibly painful.
I'm glad you said, but that's what we're talking about today.
And that's exactly what we're going to go to a quick intermission, but we wanted to talk about
Mother's Day,
relying on Christ for that peace, for that
and that
comfort.
Mother's Day is not all joyful for people today.
Go ahead, Loli. Yeah, definitely. Give a message out there. If there's anyone out there today who's mourning the loss of their mothers, find it in Christ. I mean, it's easy to say, and it's easy to put that in words, but to really
that's why we want to mourn, and then that's what you're going to talk about. We don't want to steal her platform, so come on back.
When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, Joy in My House, we're going to have back with Ms. Jackson here. Stay tuned.
When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, standing in his righteousness alone, for the standing before his throne. Ooh, Christ the solid rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand, all of the ground, is sinking sand. Ooh, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand, all of the ground is sinking sand, sand, sand is sinking sand.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. A reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And all of our guests, nothing is insignificant that anybody has to say.
And we're joined here by my co-host, Lita Robinson.
Hello.
And our in-studio guest, Jocelyn Jackson.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the show.
Boy, she left us on a cliffhanger right there. Mom dying in a park.
Yeah, her mom passing away. But even through all that, you still kept going. You graduated from University of Washington. You did a 5-year tour circuit for educational theater and a couple of commercials as well. But one of the significant things that you did was you became a certified grief recovery specialist. Let's talk about that.
Is that a coach?
It's like a coach, but it's a curriculum that I lead people through. So I see myself more as a teacher, a little bit of a coach too, trying to encourage people to move forward in specific ways. But a member of our church had been certified, and I was very curious about the program because I had a lot of friends and people who were very loving throughout my grieving process, but I still also realized that people don't know what to say, and they don't know how to help someone, and so sometimes they say whatever,
or don't say anything to pull away from people.
One or the other. And so I wanted to, and quite honestly, I felt like I don't know if I would be able to help somebody if they were going through, something. I know know what I went through, but it's still quite different to be able to be helpful to someone else and know the right thing to say. And so I became interested in getting certified myself. And so.
But through the process, you were thinking, let me see if I can help people through this process because of what you've gone through.
Yeah, what happened with you when your mother first passed away?
But then you went through it.
Yeah, what happened with me?
Yeah, did you go through a grieving process or did you delay it?
No, and at the time I was an independent contractor for a company, so I was blessed to be able to kind of set my own hours for the most part. And I thank God that I was, because I was allowed to grieve, and it was hard. We were talking about pretending to be something that you're not, and there's a temptation to do that when you're grieving. So I didn't want to be sad around people, because I don't want to bring people down, and I don't want to make them feel depressed
all the time.
And have all this pressure to try to be happy, because now all of a sudden I'm trying to make somebody else feel better. And so that's exhausting. And so it would be about noontime, I would just be done. I would be done for the day. So there was a
Did
month
you sleep
or two.
A lot?
I did.
Yeah,
I was in bed by noon for a little bit. I would have incredible highs at church. I would be so happy to be at church, and I would come down, and I would come home, and I would just crash and be very, very sad. And then the extremes, the up and downs were too much. Like I felt like I was crazy. I felt like this was not normal.
That's a beautiful thing that you said. People feel like they're crazy, but you're not. It's grief.
Yeah. And I set myself out on a journey for somebody to diagnose me as crazy, because I just needed that confirmation that this was not right, and nobody would do that.
Well, through the certification for the grieving specialist, you actually found a lot of peace with it, because you wrote that you were grieving the decisions from your teens and the decisions of your father.
Yeah.
Because you first went for your mother.
Yeah, so I went there thinking that I was going to learn some things about the grieving process with my mom, and by day 2 of the training, it was very clear that I was actually there to work on some issues from my childhood, and a lot of things surrounding my parents' divorce that were never talked about, things that I had to decipher myself, and just decisions that my dad made or didn't make, and that those were the most lingering, unresolved grief issues in my life, because those were affecting decisions that I'm still making. So it was a quick turnaround of events during that training, and I learned that grief it's not even just an isolated incident.
No, it's not.
A lot of times we think, there's this particular problem in my life, so I have to work this problem out. But it's really the totality of your life, the entire experience of losses that you've had, and how you've handled them all. They're all a part of the grieving process. And we think we can compartmentalize them, but you can't.
But you really can't. They overlap one another.
Yeah, they're connected.
That's why I was talking to Jocelyn before we got on the air. I think it's important that periodically we have other people come on talk about grief, because that's what all recovery is about. It's grieving. It's the underline of addictions. It's people not dealing with those issues, whether, like you said, the grief of the loss of childhood, your parents, and
decisions,
the sexual abuse, and
it's a change in any familiar pattern. So anything that is a familiar pattern for you that changes is a grieving experience. So by that definition, we are all grievers. We all have, but we just need to learn how to handle our losses.
And we're a whole generation of people who are not doing it. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of talk about how to grieve well, how to grieve things well. There's a lot of talk about keep it moving, get over it, move past it. Oh, you're still dealing with that, or you're still thinking about that.
10 years later, you told me you still feel sad.
Oh yeah, I'm.
And for mothers, there's people out there today who's lost their mothers. That's the crux of what we want to say today.
I will never not miss my mother. That's You'll not going to happen. I loved her. I love her. She was an incredible mom. She was my biggest cheerleader. I'm going to always miss that. Absolutely. So, but how I live the rest of my life, now that's where the grief recovery comes in, how you learn to deal with your losses. Someone who took one of my grief recovery classes just said it best. She said, we learn to acquire things in life, we learn to get things to succeed, but we don't learn how to lose. We don't learn how to lose things.
That's powerful.
And it's a part of life.
It's so true, because my husband died 3 years ago, and just about a week ago I was in a severe depression for the whole day. I was tired. I just, I couldn't function. I dreamt about him all night. And for that whole day, I was just really down. Now, the next day I was okay. But it comes. It comes and goes, doesn't it?
Times. Yeah.
You've been through it.
He
just lost his best friend.
And I explained that to her. And
Yeah.
the other day too, it just came in a wave where I just was watching a Dodger game and I just sobbed. And I was like, this is kind of weird, but it's part of the process.
Yeah, it's
I
unexpected.
love what she said. Say that again. We don't know how to lose.
Yeah, we learn to acquire, we learn to get things, to achieve things, but we don't learn how to lose.
How to let them go.
We don't learn how to lose things, and it's just as important. Just as important, we have to learn how to.
That's why I believe we have such a high addiction rate.
Yeah, we
whether
say
it's
that
food, sex, or whatever.
we say underlying every addiction is unresolved grief. There's some sort of grief that is unresolved in your heart that has not been addressed appropriately, and that's what helps feed an addiction, because you're trying to feed something inappropriately, in a wrong way.
Well, how did you get certified? What does that look like? Because I facilitate, but I don't feel led to be certified. But how does that look?
It's a training. Surprisingly, it's a 4-day training. And really, what we do as facilitators, as teachers, in a 10 to 12 week time span, we do in 4 days.
Wow.
To say it's intensified is no joke.
And I like what you said, that 75% of the process is actually dealing with your own recovery.
Yeah, the first 3 days.
It should be.
The first 3
Thank
days
God.
we did we did was our own recovery, and
Yeah,
that's
because who wants to send them to somebody who's
it's just as jacked up,
people
right?
want to do it. Good. So you had it for the first 3 days, huh?
Yes.
But you said it was longer for you to be trained for this. You said it was a 12-hour.
No, when we teach it, the classes last for about 10 weeks.
Wow.
Okay.
10 to 12, depending
Okay.
on
Okay.
but what we teach them in that class, we go through in that, actually not even 4 days, we go through in 3 days, and that last day is where we learn how to facilitate the class.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome. And you said that people kind of look at you funny when you tell them that you're certified from grief. They're like, okay, Mistress of Doom. Huh?
Yeah, I get the head shake, like, I don't know how you do it, and I maybe I have been, as people say, just appointed for this time, because to me it's not a big deal. Like, people kind of have this idea that it's somehow opening myself up to a world of depression, but that's for a moment. Depression is real, and people have sad experiences and painful memories of things. But what we do is you deal with them and you address them, and I'm confident to do it because I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I know that the pain that I'm experiencing today doesn't have to be the pain that I'm going to feel tomorrow, but I do have to feel this pain today. I have to be honest.
And with other people too in the journey. Would you say that it's important to have a support group of people around going through it with you?
Yeah, if you can have that, if you're blessed to have friends and family who get that, absolutely.
Well, you know what? I don't know how much longer we have, but the thing that's so important about Jocelyn, we were talking today being Mother's Day. It's not a Hallmark situation for everyone. Right. Thank God that the Lord is putting a lot of healing between me and my mom. We've had some rocky places. Some of you out there are grieving the loss of a mother that you wish you had. I have a good mother now. I'm glad she's here. But what are some of the other mother and daughter situations that you think that people can grieve? Well,
yeah, you hit on some right there, and you hit on a very good one, because someone who has a living mother who they don't have a good relationship with, that's a grieving situation, because it's exactly as you said, they're grieving the mother that they wish they had, and a lot of people live in their heads with the idea of what they wish somebody were, or how they wish a relationship was, but they're also living with the fact that the relationship is far from that. That's absolutely a grieving process. So Mother's Day for some people who have their mothers still is an incredible grieving process. And so I just encourage you to reach out, and obviously I can be a resource, but in any way that you can, just know that working through that is important. A lot of times when we think of grief, we think of death or divorce, but there are many, many things that are living that are grieving processes also.
I think you touched on
and they're
that
not
today.
crazy today. And if you're down today and you're not all caught up in the Hallmark moment, what do you say to people when they're where they are? What would you say to them?
I say I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're experiencing that heartache. I don't say I know how you feel, because I don't. I mean, I have my particular experience, and even if somebody has a seemingly similar experience, it's different. They had a different relationship. So I don't try to bond myself to them in a way that's not necessary for them, because I want them to feel like I understand them in a genuine way.
In their experience, without trying to interject yourself into it.
Yeah, I would just encourage people to, if you are, if you're struggling with an addiction, to just really begin to take some steps to move out of that, to get out of the habit of running to something else when you're in pain.
That's great.
Because that's going to be helpful in your recovery. And where you are right now is not your lot in life. You're not meant to stay there. So finding a way to get your way out of it is the best way.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. Well, Jocelyn, I want to give you an
Thank you.
opportunity,
That was
because you're be
beautiful.
offering a free workshop, Grief Recovery, on Wednesday, June 19th.
Yes.
For more information, you can find it at www.freedomfromgrief.com.
That's beautiful.
I want all of you out there to be grateful, to be thankful for the mothers that you do have. And if you're feeling a little lonely, find something that's going to help you in a positive way.
Join another family.
This is Join My House, ladies and gentlemen. Join us next week where we'll have David Zahler from Operation Integrity, a Christian 12-step program here. Don't miss out, ladies and gentlemen. This is Join My House. Find us on Facebook, LA Talk Live, and have a blessed day and happy Mother's Day to you all.
Bye-bye.
To depend upon him, I bring him ashes for gold. He starts to work, I put him on hold. Still he's faithful to me, 'cause he's